Welcome to another live stream. Organized stalking handlers and the end of days. A lot of the things that we've been looking at in, the Epstein files and other things, there's a whole lot of controversy over the findings and the things that are being exposed that a lot of targets have been talking about for quite a while. A lot of targets will talk about the secret societies. They'll talk about the hierarchy and the corruption involved, the things that go on behind closed doors, and trying to figure out whether or not some of the, because I've talked about the fact that, all those documents that have been released, it's almost like a CIA flood technique, or something that is going to just be geared towards the classic demoralization method of where people don't know what to believe. We're getting redacted things involving everything from satanic ritual abuse to murder to sex trafficking and even occult rituals and sex magic, spirit cooking, and these things we've talked about. Okay, it sounds crazy, like I said, separating the signal from the noise is usually the issue. But as I've mentioned before, when it comes to targeted individuals, is that a lot of people, they're like, why are they doing this stuff to me? Why do they have to interrupt their supposed life of luxury, privilege, and power within the framework of their conformity to do these things to me? Well, there's a reason. And it's not that everybody is dealing with the same thing. And I've mentioned that a lot, that there are targets out there who are being experimented on, and they're in programs, they're collecting data and everything. But, sometimes it's mixed in there too with the stuff that I've mentioned concerning the occult and the spiritual oppression and everything like that, because these people are obviously, being manipulated. And ultimately, even the technology and the other things that are, being used in that framework have been handed down by the spiritual handlers within, what we're dealing with, whether you're dealing with V2K, directed energy weapons, the psychological warfare, the things that were listed in the MK Ultra experiments that were taking people into altered states of consciousness, or even taking them into a state of hypnosis and or a regressed state to where they could be depatterned and programmed, you and Cameron. And the fact, there's a lot of targets that have been getting a hold of me from Ontario and around that area in Quebec. And it just seems different up there. And I don't know why, but they all say the same thing. Even the individuals up in the UK, very similar experiences with their stalking and everything. But when you're looking at this whole thing, when you consider the motive, and when you look at some of the testimonies that targeted individuals have come forward and talked about involving things that would relate to these secret societies and to the things that go on behind closed doors, the meetings, the fraternities, the clandestine get-togethers that involve things that might be so extensive that it is secret knowledge and hidden wisdom. And I've mentioned this before, that when you get into the Rosicrucians and the Freemasons, the Illuminati, and all those things, this is not something that can't be proven. These things are out there, and you have to realize that the delusions and the deceptions and the programs and all these things that involve the activity that targeted individuals deal with. It's not random. It's not something that is excluded not only from the legal framework, which when you get into people talking about this spirit cooking, these things that a lot of individuals within the flood of information will consider ridiculous, eating and drinking human, whether it be blood or eating the things that involve the flesh of human beings or something else, that when you get into this whole act of gang stalking, a lot of targets feel like they're being fed on. A lot of people have come up with different theories involving how this stuff is working and why these people are doing it. But the undeniable fact is that they are interrupting their lives. They are going out of their way, spending their God-given time and resources to do these things. But what are they getting out of it? Well, I've already talked about some of that stuff. Don't be fooled. Power, privilege, pleasure, the passing of time, the 4 Ps, that conformity. And there's been a lot of people that have come in and talked about the fact that, it's interesting to see that when targets are attacked, they get dysregulated. They get tormented. And so the whole loose theory or the other, spiritual vampire, mythos around this whole is that they're feeding on them. They're feeding on the fear. They're feeding on the depression. They're feeding on the dysfunction, the chaos. But if they don't do it, and that's the thing that a lot of targets, and I've seen this thing before too, and maybe I'm wrong, but if they don't participate, if they do not do these things, it's almost like they get fed on, so they get dysregulated. That the motivation of that tyranny of the environmental stimuli involving these hierarchies, involving these groups of individuals, the collusion that is out there that is obvious and undeniable, where there is wealth, power, and privilege, lineages, fraternities, covens, cults. They don't seem to have any problems as long as they are making your life hell. Oh, I've seen it. Like I said, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. But I've seen it. When individuals come forward and talk about some of the things that they've experienced in the targeted individual menagerie that they've been exposed to, it's almost as if everyone has turned against them, not only in their social circles, in their workplace, in their community, but even in their family. What a wake-up call to see the fragile infrastructure that you are surrounded by as a victim of organized stalking and harassment. At to what level, you can only guess. Some targets deal with things that are so far out of the conceptual framework or the norms of society that it seems like they are dealing with not only a group of individuals, a gang of individuals, but something that is far beyond that, something that might even be beyond human organization. Several different types of people are after them. Different groups of individuals seem to be hunting them. There seems to be no relief. No matter what they do, no matter the little games that they play. And I've talked about that, a lot of times There'll be little psychological games involved in this. Well, you just got to do this. You just got to do that. We're trying to help you. The gaslighting is exponential when it comes to the games of these handlers and the propositions that are put forth within the environmental tyranny of the lateral comparison framework that you look at, that targets are weighed in the balance. Oh, you're not keeping up with the Joneses. Are you ever going to get married? How come you don't have a family and, the 2.0 Brady Bunch existence that other individuals have? Well, that just sounds crazy. Dare you say anything as someone who has experienced this nightmare of organized stalking and harassment where you can't turn your back for a minute? You don't know who you can trust. It seems as though the tentacles of the octopus are pretty much everywhere. And I've heard testimonies from targeted individuals, that they're, maybe in a place where they leave their town or city. We've all played the game. You wouldn't think for a minute that these things just keep going. It's crazy, right? I mean, it's really, some of the things that targets deal with are so far out of the conceptual framework that the danger of gaslighting and psychosis are there. And I've mentioned that, when you get into the mass gaslighting campaigns, like the Mandela effect is very good example. People believe that they created a porthole with CERN and went back and changed everything. They don't have to do that. They set this whole thing up, just like they are setting targets up and gaslighting them and trying to warp their mind and warp their reality. And that's one of the things that handlers do very, 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 very well. They warp and distort your reality. We have someone in the back room, and I did put a link up there, and you have to remember the rules. Turn off your cam, no mentioning other channels, and you better not have your full name. No promoting other religions than Christianity. I'm going to go in and see who's out there.
Hi.
Welcome to the show. You are live around the world. Hello.
Hello, Dr. DePacto. How are you?
I'm very well. Now, and I think, hold on.
Okay, I'm holding.
Are you in a place where there's going to be no background noise? We can't have that background noise going on.
Let me get to a place where there's no background noise. This should be
okay. We need. Hold on. Please hold on. We need no background noise because that is not something that we're going to deal with. I already warned you about that.
I know, but the problem is
we can't do that.
Hold on.
You're going to have to figure that out. I already warned you about that.
How is it right now?
Okay, we're gonna have to. That's all I ask. We can't do a show if we can't hear you.
Okay, I think it's okay now.
Well, hopefully it will be because we've got background noise again. You need to find it. Come back in when you have a place that is without the background noise, please. We can't do this.
Okay.
You're gonna have to come back in. Okay, we're gonna have to take you off the stage.
Okay.
And unfortunately, I try to make this as professional as I can, and I try to be as accommodating as possible, even if there are individuals out there who are handlers, which I've mentioned that before. Sometimes we do have the chief handler, the stock father, or other individuals. They're probably just trolls, you know, kids living in their grandma's basement or something. We don't know. We don't want to. We don't want to underestimate anyone, and that's a big problem that I was kind of getting into. That it's easy to just use the conceptual framework that you have been raised around, which is indoctrination. That's the beginning of the deception and the gaslighting for targeted individuals. Something like gang stalking that's just crazy. That's not possible. Sure it is. And that's the beginning of the gaslighting, right? All we have to do is flip the environmental stimuli around the victim and get them into a place where they can use that conceptual framework and the norms and the herd mentality and the trauma. The Tavistock Institute talked about that a lot. What do? Well, they indoctrinate you. Some of the handlers that you have been dealing with are not, the gang stalker. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to, use directed conversations on you. Some of the handlers that you started out with were back when you were just a child. The indoctrination, the lies, the little masks that some of these people are wearing. And, we talked about the secret societies earlier. And from the things that I've seen, maybe I'm wrong, and the things that I've heard a lot of other targets talk about is, it sounds crazy, but I think some of these people they not only are recruited, but, lineages of these individuals and families, including the things that I've experienced, can be involved even from very early ages. And it's horrifying to think about that literally you can be surrounded by these people as a targeted individual. We talked about that. People deal with directed conversations in street theater and all these little games that are there. They get attacked in public places. They get attacked, by, their coworkers, strangers. What the hell is going on? But of course, they were always there, right? And that's the danger, the fact that that they were hiding. Maybe they pretended, like Dennis Rader, that they were a deacon in a church. Maybe they pretended that they were just a regular truck driver and a community citizen, like Gary Ridgway. Maybe they, were just masquerading as a friend, like your blood-sucking narcissist. All these targets deal with this stuff, but the thing that they all have in common, and we see there's somebody in the back room, we're going to let you in, hold on, is that there's a facade. There's a violation of that with the plausible deniability used to take targets into the psychosis, into that menagerie of gaslighting and trauma-based mind control. We're going to go back in and see, and hopefully, do we have a little better location now, sir?
I found a soundproofing unit.
That's good because I like I said, I want to have you on, but I mean, you gotta work with me. Gotta work with me.
Listen. I don't take critique very well just because I'm being gang stalked so heavily, and all I get is critique and criticism and judgment. I never get any positive feedback, so I apologize if I had a little bit of an emotional reaction to the way that you dealt with the situation. But I understand what you're saying. I fully agree, and I found an isolated place in a shelter of 200 men because that's where I've been from.
That's pretty hard to do. I appreciate that. And that's why I said that next time that because I know you're in difficult circumstances, but I did mention
Yeah, I
that.
know, right now.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's because
Let's
we
go.
can't do it otherwise. It's just not going to work.
Okay.
That's
No, we should be good
it's
now.
about
This thing is
transactional
literally,
functionality.
I got you. And this thing is like, I can't hear anything outside. I didn't even know they had these. I just walked by. I'm like, OMG, look at that. And I went inside. I'm like, and I happened to get, because I don't have any data on my plan because I have no money because they sabotaged my finances. So I'm on the Wi-Fi. I'm at the mercy of the Wi-Fi. So I have to find a Wi-Fi connection and a quiet spot in a homeless shelter of 200 people.
That's pretty impressive, and I appreciate that. Let me ask you this:
Yes, go ahead.
how long have you been living in that homeless shelter anyway?
I've been for about almost 4 weeks.
Okay, and how long has it been since you've had employment?
The last time I had a job on paper was in 2009.
Wow. So are you
Yeah.
receiving supplemental income or?
I'm actually currently imminent waiting a judgment on my Social Security SSI benefits. I applied 22 months ago. I'm on my first appeal. They're finally getting.
So
to a
you've been
verdict
living
probably the next-
living without that from 2009 till now?
I've been jumping from institution to institution, back to a tent, to institution to institution, and being harassed, being followed, being bombarded with noise campaigns, street theater, 24/7, especially when I'm living on the streets.
Okay. No,
It's
I've
really
seen it.
intense.
I know. I
It's really
believe you.
intense.
I totally believe you. So what happens when you try to get employment? Is it like a sabotage, workplace scenario, harassment?
Well, I actually haven't really tried to get too much employment recently because I low key got an inheritance from my parents. I lived in kind of an interesting lifestyle. But anyway, all that being said, so now my family's all turned on me. The person who's doing the trust fund, who's supposed to be giving me my money, is now cutting me off arbitrarily. So I have to hire a lawyer and sue her. It's just a mess. So I'm not getting it. It's just they've taken me to the bottom of the barrel where I have got no move. There's no move I can make. I've got no money. I've got no friends. I've got everybody harassing me, especially in here. I get bombarded with negativity, with bullying, with harassment all night and day, 24/7. It's crazy, bro. It's
I believe it. I've seen it. So let me ask you this. So so now you figured out that you have assets in this trust fund and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And so the thing is now you're going to sue the trustee. Is that correct?
What I'm trying to do is live. I don't know if by the way, I love you, Dr. Bagel. You're slightly repetitive, but it's like a mantra. You're always the same and you say the same truth all the time. And what you're saying is it's 100% accurate when it comes to a TI. 100%. Everything you say. Everything you say. So I want to say I really appreciate there's no other broadcast out there that comes anywhere close to you. Period.
Well, I appreciate the compliment, and I try to be consistent because that's where credibility comes from. Now, let me. Okay, so we'll forget about your financial situation. Are you here to contribute to the handlers
Okay, so
and the end times, or are you?
I'd like to talk about the money, the honeypots.
The honeypots. Okay, no, they're handlers. They're handlers. They absolutely
they
are.
blew my mind. They blew my mind before I knew they were blowing my mind. I'm telling you, 12 years of overt gang stalking, probably 2 or 3 of covert, and I would say anywhere near 30 to 50 honeypots. I haven't been intimate with a woman or had a real friendship, like a road dog, like a friend, in the entire 12 years. They have not allowed me to make a true connection with another being, period. All of the females have been there to trick, seduce, coerce, set up, cut it, and all the guys were there to gaslight, to spin blame, to blame. I mean, it's just been insane. And in retrospect, when I think back about it, even when it seemed that the volume seemed to be turned down on the gang stalking, I know you've talked about that. It seems to like get to the point where it's almost indiscernible. It's still there, especially in retrospect, because you're like, well, I still haven't met a real friend. I still haven't met a woman to even hold hand with. Like, it's still, there's still sirens that go by, periodically, but a little too periodically. Oh, well, that's just the environmental normalness of the city. No. When you've been gang stalked and you've known about it for 12 years overtly, you see the patterns. If you share one isolated incident with somebody, ability. But when you see it over and over and over and over, it's like I'd have to be a total dummy to not see this. But nobody else see that. All they do, they gaslight the SHIT out of you to make you think that either crazy or delusional or just paranoid or blah, 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 or on drugs or don't have the reward in your life or something. It's insane. I have no one, Dr. DeFacto. I have absolutely nobody I can go to. And you know that. Not a psychiatrist, not a counselor, not a friend, not a person in Alcoholics Anonymous. Nobody that's supposed to be there on paper that are like designed to be there even are there for me. They all gaslight me. Everybody.
It's horrifying. It's absolutely horrifying. Yeah.
You talk about a labyrinth with no exits. Like I go around corners and I go zigzag, and boom, dead end. Turn around. Boom, boom. I can't get out of this if I try. And I'm a pretty industrious, intelligent, perceptive, motivated, strong, powerful individual, especially because of all this. I can't figure out how to get out of this HIT. At all. It's insane.
Well, hold on, because you're doing well. And you pointed out something that I think all targets, something that I deal with. You hit the nail on the head. I want you to slow down a little bit, though. Calm down.
Did I?
Okay.
I know.
Because it's hard not to be emotional about this because you're dealing with it all the time. And you are dealing with it in a way that just hold on. That a lot of targets are dealing with this in the sense that you turn to the left, you turn to the right, you turn back, you turn forward. And like you said, there's just no getting away.
They're everywhere.
There seems to be no escape.
No, and everybody it's like the Eagles song, the new kid in town. Everybody's talking when you walk, or I forget how it goes, but that song reminds you of gangs.
Well, hold on. So here's what I'm going to ask you. Here's what I'm going to. Hold on.
I traveled 7 miles across the greater Los Angeles. Okay, go ahead.
Here's what I'm getting at. Okay, so,
yeah.
What are you? Okay, you know this now. Here's my point. You have seen the things that are unexplainable. You have dealt with this menagerie of psychological manipulation, environmental tyranny, and all these things. And so you want an end to it. Of course, we all do. But hold on. Going back, there was never there. It was never there, dude. It was never there. Do you realize that? It was never there.
What, the escape?
Well, where do you want to go back to? You are where you are now.
I know. Listen, it was funny. I was talking to somebody today who said that they believe in gang stalking. They sympathize. It was all gaslighting. But anyway, I told him, I said, look, I don't ask how, why, what anymore. I ask, what am I going to do in the present moment? In every single situation, whether I'm dealing with a workplace bully, an in-house bully, whether I'm dealing with all the ambulances lining up in front of my house, single file, like 7 or 8 ambulances just sitting there with their sirens on and the police barricade coming by. Just insane.
Okay, okay, hold on. I get it. Hold on. I'm going to try and help you out here.
Right.
Okay.
So how do I do it?
Hold on.
Sorry.
Hold on. Just stop.
Right.
Stop.
All right.
It sounds like to me, not only are you dealing with the classic things that targets deal with, and not only are you dealing with the environmental tyranny, but it sounds possibly as if not only there's two things going for you that I can see. You have a supplemental income. In the meantime, you are waiting to deal with this resource that you have access to within a trust fund. And that should give you hope. There's a lot, I don't have that. There's a lot of people that don't have that.
Well, maybe one day I can help people out, but that's another story for another time. But I'll say this for you. You know what's also an imperative for me is the lack of fear. It's not that, well, actually, I'm not as afraid to die as I was when I was younger. Like, now I'll go down for the cause. I'll go down for the cause. I don't care anymore. But I'm not like I'm suicidal. I'm just saying I will die for this shit. I will die behind the truth with a capital T, period. But I also know that all their games, no matter how high the volume turns out, no matter how many helicopters, no matter how big the group of people I'm around is, no matter how many ambulances, no matter how many this.
Let me hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. I want to try and direct you a little bit back to the original conversation that we were talking about. You had mentioned honeypots. You had mentioned honeypots.
Yes, I did. They're crazy.
Okay, because a lot of the stuff that you're dealing with, other than that, it's there, but it's not following the themes. Well, what about the honeypot? What about that?
Okay, so the honeypots, as you know, are women that come into your life that they profile after they profiled you, obviously, and they know what you like, the height, the ethnicity, the body type, the personality type, the interests they're in. So, like, you know, if I'm interested in something, they'll be interested in the same thing. They set you up with the perft match, and these guys are really good. Obviously, they're really good at what they do. So they
hold on. Please, sir, please. Let me help. Let me interject. You're so fast and so motivated on what you're saying. No, just hold on. Okay, no. Okay, let's pick this apart a little bit, dude. Okay, I want you to come on. You got to work with me a little bit, brother. Okay. So, from what you just said, this is not something to underestimate. You had basically just described something that was literally set up specifically for you. Is that correct? Yes. Is that what you said?
Yes, it was designed just for me. Yes. Yes.
Okay, so that's pretty intense. That's not something to skip over.
No, it's everybody. It's the men, the women, almost every interaction. Even the ones that might not be a gang stalking interaction tend to start seeming like one. Even if a person just has a weird personality naturally, and they may just be that way, because you're so brainwashed, you attribute it to gang stalking. But
okay, hold on. Hold on. Okay, so we've identified. Please don't say anything for a minute. We have identified some interesting points to your conversation. One of them is the environmental tyranny, which is over the top. The other one is that you're being set up, and so we're trying to pick this apart. So because you are very fast and speaking, so just hold on, because there are people out there, and we have to take this incrementally. The other thing, okay, so you hold on. So you have illustrated that, okay, what? One, that you were experiencing a collusion and a conspiracy. Two, that there is such an involvement that things are literally critiqued and set up especially for you. And three, I would like to ask you a question as to how you believe that these individuals are being brought in, because if they're literally setting up honeypots for you, and I'm not picking apart your story. I believe it. I'm just saying that. How do you think that's working out? How do you perceive what's going on?
How is that working out for them or for me?
No. How are they? You said you're being set up. They're profiling you, and they're sending these individuals into your life. How is it spiritual? Is it like intel? Is it some kind of like a recon? What is it?
No. It's handlers.
Right, but how do they get the information?
They're in my life because they're hanging out with me. They're getting into my personal space. They're listening to what I say, what I talk about, what I do, how I act. They're getting to know the real me, and they're sharing that the powers greater than us, and the powers greater than us are processing that information, organizing it, and creating.
You're starting to fade out, sir, and I'm not
infuse into it.
okay. So okay now.
Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. So you're talking about
Okay.
people who are literally on the inside listening to you and figuring out your likes and dislikes and then setting you up basically is really okay.
Yes. Yes.
But
Yes.
okay.
It's just like directed conversation. It's just like directed conversation. How do you think they get that information? By tapping your phones, by tapping your this, by tapping your that, by having shields and handlers come into your life, pretend to
Okay.
be your friend, befriend you, and then extract information and use that information
Right.
against
No,
you.
it's a fishing expedition is
On
what
a
you're saying.
massive
Yeah.
level.
Yeah.
A massive fishing expedition. They're looking for like Moby Dick. Like that's that big of an expedition. Like it's crazy. And my smear campaign was so messed up and I was so demonized that I don't even know what to say about that. I don't even want to go into this.
Hold on a minute, because you hold on. You're starting to. Could you move a little closer to the door or something because you're starting to fade
I'm
out
trying. Yeah, I wish I did still, but okay. How's that?
a little bit better because you might have been close to a metal door or something like that. So yeah.
Hold on. Let me try this. Okay. How's that?
No, that sounds a little bit better. So interesting that you did mention you hold on. You mentioned situations that perceivably, at least from your perspective, could be set up through a type of recon, infiltration, friends, people masquerading and then getting intel and so on and so forth and setting you up with these things according to your psychological profile. But you also mentioned that there were things that were in the environment that seemed to be set up for you that, I mean, how would you do something like that? Are you sure that, the accident scenes were for you, or was that just some kind of spiritual manipulation to get you to read into it?
Okay, let me. This might be field or light. As my father used to say, a bull lighting out of the blue sky. Let me tell you a story about cyberbullying off of TikTok. I got cyberbullied so badly that it got to the point where TikTok actually banned me for defending myself against these people in chat rooms, et cetera, et cetera. They violated me for violating community standards, and they canceled my account. So what they did was this: I was in a chat room, and when I was first in there, it was a really it was a chat room with jokes around. Like they capped each other, they bagged, they made fun of people. But anyway, they were making fun of me. I was like, whatever. And then they started veering towards okay. So the girl says, "Are you a sex offender?" I'm like, "What?" She goes, "What's your name?" I'm like, "Oh, excuse me." I'm looking up on the computer. I'm like, "Oh, whatever." So anyway, after that whole thing, they were like, it's plausible liability. They're just kind of joking around. Right?
Hold on a minute. Wait, hold on, because you're cutting out so much we can hardly hear a word you're saying.
Sorry.
No, it's not your fault. It has to do with the reception. Hold on. Here's what we're gonna have to do. We're gonna have to take you off the stage, and we're gonna have you in another night because obviously, unfortunately, and I apologize for that. I'm not going to let it go on anymore because it was like listening to a malfunctioning robot, and we can't have that. And unfortunately, that happens sometimes. And it's easy for targets to become very emotional, and we do appreciate the guests that come in here, and some of the things that targets are dealing with are so life changing that it's hard to especially with the fact that people are never really getting the affirmation that they need. And I just want to let people know that if they call in and they want to be on the show, that's fine. You don't have to try and spit everything out and solve all your problems in 5 minutes. You can come in multiple times as long as you obey the rules. And as long as you try to follow that modus operandi, but it's very intense. And unfortunately, to illustrate, that's basically what happens to all targets. What that individual it just experienced, because some individuals were like, "Yeah, slow down," but see, that's what happens to all of us, because when you're minimized and you're isolated and you experience the judgment of the collective, and you have that type of epistemic injury where no one believes you, and then all of a sudden you have a platform, or you have someone that you're talking to and they seem to be listening to you. And a lot of targets are set up with those fake friends and fake perps, and those the fake targets or whatever. And you start going, and it's always the same thing. It's hard not to have that type of crescendo event with all those emotions, trying to explain this complex scenario that you are dealing with as a target, because it is really that labyrinthian. And that the guest that was just on had mentioned that it's dealing with you're like you're in a labyrinth, and the handlers, they have intel, they have experience, and there's an equation involved. Absolutely, there is. And they will use that type of emotional control, that manipulation, that minimization, the lack of affirmation, that environmental tyranny involving the injustice and the unfair judgment, not only of maybe family members, as the caller was talking about, but just the people around you. And one simple question can set it all off. And it doesn't have to be, someone who's involved. And that's the thing about the science of gang stalking, is that it's designed to make you look dysfunctional and crazy. Slow down, you're talking too fast. Wait a minute, you're talking in circles. Hold on now, that doesn't make sense. It's always going to be part of what you're dealing with, because these things are beyond belief. I absolutely believe that caller. Maybe, like all of us as, victims of traumatic mind control, sometimes we do read into things. It happens. It's no big deal. But that's not the point. The point is it's so easy to trigger targets with just the simplest things, because the handlers involved in this type of traumatic mind control, this narcissist, framework of manipulation and gaslighting and triangulation and collusion and environmental tyranny, can get you to the point where you're just so desperate. And unfortunately, that's a reality for all targeted individuals. And so I don't want to minimize any of the people that come in here or any of the things that are discussed, because we've talked about this. In fact, I've got a link in the description for the Lutheran Missouri Synod once again, because in my opinion, and I could be wrong, that I think they just got caught. These things are happening everywhere. Targets can be harassed in ways that are just way beyond the conceptual framework, and it's real. It's not crazy. It's not a psychosis. Yeah, sometimes they read into things. It happens. But the other stuff is real. The persecution is there. The tyranny is real. And it puts the target into a state of fight or flight. It takes them into a place of derealization. And, like I've mentioned before, the handlers and the end times. What am I talking about? Here's what I'm talking about. As far as I know, and I've done these calculations concerning the Dead Sea Scrolls and the prophecies in the Bible, And from what I've come up with, along with the seven heads of the dragon involved in not only the Book of Revelations, but in the statue of Nebuchadnezzar and the prophecy of the rock coming from outer space that shatters the statue, which is basically a representation of the kingdom of darkness on this world, that is comprised within the cosmic geography of the Middle East in a type of kingdom or nations. And I've talked about that before, that when you have the statue of Nebuchadnezzar, you have Babylon, Media, Persia, Greece, Rome, and then you have the feet of iron and clay, which to me is the Ottoman Empire, which was taken down in 1923, the Caliphate, and risen back up after that, where you have the fulfillment of Revelations 3:10, the Church of Philadelphia, which is the only church that really escaped the Ottoman Empire, if you look into that. And they put their new church up in 1923 at the time the head that had a deadly wound was taken down, and now it is revived through Recep Tayyip Erdogan and other things going on in the Middle East. But before Babylon, we had ancient Egypt and Assyria. What's that? That's seven heads. Okay. And when you look at the things that I've talked about before, and I was a little obscure about how I was calculating those things, when you figure out who the Jews are, those are the Pharisees, the Sadducees, and the Essenes, and how there's a split, and they were at war, and how the Pharisees, which a lot of people say the synagogue of Satan, what's that? You're the synagogue of Satan. Well, they obfuscated the prophecies of the Messiah, literally. And the Sadducees, they did the same thing. And so when Jesus was dealing with them, he wasn't just dealing with a bunch of religious bigots. These guys had rejected the prophecies given by the prophets, and they were at war. And that's when I've talked about when you get into the wise men that visited Jesus when he was born at the convergence of Jupiter and Regulus, the king star, in AD 3, September 11th. That was a fulfillment of Revelations 3:12. And, people don't understand what's going on. But when you get into calculating out these prophecies in the book of Daniel and in the book of Revelations, with not only the end times and the regathering, according to the prophet Jeremiah, you can see it. I mean, Jesus even rebuked the people and said, you missed the time of your visitation, because they could have known. They could have used the solar calendar and converted those prophecies and known that he was going to show up in 32 AD. And I've talked about that, right? You have 490 years of disobedience minus the final week of Daniel, which is 7, which takes it down to 483 years, times 0.9857 to convert to the solar calendar, minus the decree that went out in 444, which is 32 AD. They should have known. When you multiply 7 times 360, which is the lunar calendar, which they adopted, the Sadducees and the Pharisees, in the Babylonian exile, that's 2,520, excuse me. And when you convert it using 0.9857 to the solar calendar, you get 2,484 years. And if you do the exile of the Jews, the 70 weeks of years, that takes you to 1948. How? Well, they went in after the prophecies came down from Jeremiah in 606, 605. The decree went out for them to go back into the cosmic geography of the Holy Land in 538. They had to sell their businesses. They had to take a journey of 1,000 miles, and they got there in 536 and started rebuilding the temple. That's 70 years. All you have to do is the math. From 536 BCE to 1948 is exactly 2,484 years. It's not rocket science. There are only a couple things that need to happen for the end to be here. And I'm not saying I know the day or the hour, but you guys, this is right here. And getting back into what I was talking about at the beginning of the live stream, what do we see in the world now? We see the same thing we saw around Sodom and Gomorrah, not to be too explicit. What else? All these things in the Epstein files, what are we seeing? People, sacrificing children, and it's just crazy stuff. Just like the prophet Jeremiah, when Israel was compromised, and what were they doing? They were literally sacrificing their children to Molech and Baal. Come on, guys. You got to see what's happening. There isn't much time left. This, when you get into the secret societies and all those things that I've talked about before, this is their golden age. This is their little last hurrah. They think that they're going to Mars or whatever. They have no idea what's going on. It's almost over, guys. I'm going to tell you right now, I know what I'm talking about. And the generation that sees all these things to come to pass, it's going to happen. What are we waiting for now? Well, that's 2 Thessalonians. Be not shaken in mind that this day shall not happen. What day? The day of the Lord, and our gathering to him, which is the rapture. That's 2 Thessalonians 2:1. That the man of sin will be revealed, and that's the Antichrist, right? And that there'll be a type of lying signs and wonders that are going on with the example that we have been given in Sodom and Gomorrah. What do we have? All this stuff that's coming forward. It's all the same. It's all there. And then you have the other handlers that I've mentioned before in the churches, these wolves that are promoting false doctrines and deceiving people. And Paul talked about that in Acts 20:29. And now what? Well, it's only a matter of time. It's almost here, guys. Their golden age, their reign upon this world is almost over. And I've mentioned before that, when it comes to targeted individuals, that your hope is not within the governmental system of this world. It's within the justice of the Almighty. And by the way, all praises go out to the Most High God, that he is going to do a new thing. And the book of Revelations is very clear that he's going to wipe away all the tears, and that there'll be 1,000 years of peace. And after that God is going to literally just change everything around, and there'll be no memory of these things after that. You have to believe it, guys. The handlers are here to do specific things. And like I said, gang stalking can involve a lot of different things. But ultimately, when you calculate out this equation, when you see the things that are coming forward in the media with our leaders, as like I said, the leaders of Israel started sacrificing children. Even Solomon created 2 temples for Molech. The whole thing is not a coincidence. And even the things that are going on, concerning class warfare and racial tension. It's like these patterns are happening over and over. It's not a coincidence. And the birth pangs are here. You have to believe that eventually these things will be exposed and you will be exonerated. They will come out on the table in the full light and the full perfect justice of El Elyon, the Most High. And that's our hope. Because unfortunately, these things are going to get worse. And that's the demoralization that you can't give into. People say, well, you're not about solutions. You can't What are you trying to go back to? There was never anything there. You're awake now. You see what's going on. And there is a day of reckoning. And it's not to say that some of these things can't come to light. I hope they do. I don't think we have that much time left. And the things that are happening, the things that targeted individuals are dealing with, not only with the organized stalking and harassment, but with the handlers, with the correlations, with things that involve end times prophecy and the fulfillment, the things that are staring you in the face. It's not by mistake. I'd like to thank everyone for coming in. I'd like to thank all of the moderators. If you have any ideas for future videos or live streams, put it in the comment section. God bless. Be good to yourselves. Be safe.